Many past lives ago, I used to do magic. Specifically, I used to do kids' magic shows. And this was an effect that I would usually do in a child's magic show. I would show them an empty pan. I would then light magically and mysteriously the pan. I would then take a trusty magic wand. I would ask for a magic word from the audience. Abracadabra. That's... Never heard that one before. Okay. Abracadabra. And what once was empty is now filled with candy. Oh! And some of the children might want to make sure that's true at the end of the service, you know, that it is real candy and not an illusion. Now, if I were to take a survey right now of how many of you, when you saw that magic trick, either A, thought to yourself, I know how he did that, or B, I wonder how he did it, and for the rest of the sermon, I'm going to try to figure it out. And odds are 90% of you all fall into the category of one of those two responses or thoughts, because it is natural that if you're over 7 or 8 or so, you're going to see magic and say, nah, I know there's a trick to this. There's no such thing as magic. You know? As a matter of fact, whenever I would do kids' shows, that's what they would say after each effect. I know how you did that, and some would run up to the table and grab a prop or do this. It left me emotionally scarred. I remember my last magic show was for a group of Cub Scouts. I still wake up screaming at night sometimes with that. So I just gave it up. I stopped. And I understand why. Because we know there's no magic. We know it's sleight of hand or a prop or an angle or a mirror or something like that. We also know there's no magic in life because we know the laws of life, don't we? We know the laws of cause and effect. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Matter can neither be created nor destroyed. We know that nature is red in tooth and claw. It's a jungle out there and only the strong survive. We know that we will, no matter how good a life we live, will encounter pain, suffering, and ultimately we will all die, period. So, of course, we are wanting to explain magic because we know there is no such thing as pure magic. And you know what? I think the women going to that tomb that first morning felt the stoopness of the Spirit, knowing that life, yes, is confined by those laws and by those expectations. They probably were stooped in their shoulders as well because they had once hoped, they had once had the joy in their heart that, yeah, maybe there could be something lasting in life that could break the cycle of pain. But it was crucified, that hope of theirs, just a couple of days before, right? The agony and the blood of that cross effectively nailed shut any hope that they had. So I want you to imagine, reimagine, if you will, the Easter scene as if it were a stage for magic. Imagine that the women are coming up to that tomb on a hill, say, as dawn is breaking, and they still see the stone rolled in front of the tomb. It's still there, that stone. And imagine them hearing a voice booming from the sky. Step right up, ladies. I want to show you something you've never seen before. You know that my son was killed just 2 days before. You saw him dead and buried here in this tomb. He was wrapped up even, so he could not move even if he were alive. Wrapped up in grave cloths and sealed in that tomb. That rock has not moved from that cave in 3 days. Now, watch. Stone rolls away. Go in there and tell me what you see. So the women go in, and it said, in the scripture lesson that the women looked in, but actually the Greek meaning is the sense of searching, going in, not just looking in, but going in and examining every square inch of that cave, that tomb, checking for trap doors, for false walls, for mirrors, because the women could not believe that Jesus could live again. That's part of the natural law. If you're dead, you're dead. They had to find an explanation for Jesus living again. You know, and it might have been that he hadn't really died. It might have been a Passover plot where the disciples snuck in and got the body. Maybe the Roman guards were paid off. You know, people instantly started thinking, yeah, there had to be a trick. Do you ever feel that in your life? Something good happens. Something miraculous, something out of the ordinary, a coincidence, and you're saying to yourself, yeah, that's nice, but come on, life's not like that. That just happened. That just happened. That's the way it goes, because I know how everything will ultimately end. Yes, I just can't wait for the other shoe to drop. Have you ever heard that? Just can't wait. And so the women had a hard time believing that Jesus could, that just doesn't happen. And so God sent 2 magicians' assistants, 2 men in dazzling white. Now, we know they're magicians' assistants because, have you ever seen a magician's assistant in cutoffs and a Hawaiian shirt? No, they're dazzling. So you had 2 dazzling assistants right there saying, hey, women, remember, why do you look for the living among the dead? He's not here. Remember how he told you that he still was in Galilee, while he was still in Galilee, that he must be handed over to sinners, be crucified, on the 3rd day rise again. Then the women remembered. See, the problem had been that they couldn't remember past Friday because of the horrible scene. They couldn't remember past the tumultuous events of Holy Week with his capture and torture and then ultimately death. But then they remembered back weeks before, maybe months before, in a calmer time, a gentler time. Maybe after a picnic lunch, as he's talking, he says, now, my friends, you're not going to understand this right now, but you will eventually, that the Son of Man, I will die, but I'm not going to stay dead. And they remembered. And it dawned on them. Jesus was not that patsy. He's not that lamb that was sacrificed. He was not a passive victim going into Jerusalem, allowing himself to be nailed. He knew exactly what was going to happen a long time before, weeks before, months before, years before. He knew it. And so he called the shot. He said, this is what's going to, and when they remembered, that put everything in a totally new light. Yes, he is alive, because he is so intimately connected to the parent he called Father that the power of the Father that can overturn the laws of this world with the flick of the thumb, the power of that Father is running, coursing through Jesus' now alive veins. Truly, everything Jesus said about this God is true, that he's a doting parent yearning for you. Truly, everything Jesus said about this God is true, that all you need to have life is to seek God fully and to love your neighbor unconditionally. Suddenly, the women understood that now Jesus is back and he's not going away anymore. He lives forevermore with you right now, as close as the breath is to your body. That's the wow of Easter. They were overwhelmed. He is alive. And so they run. They could not help but to run to tell the others this wow of Easter. Now, I have preached this series of sermons on simply childhood because we learn a lot from a child. I really want to appreciate what children can do in terms of incorporating magic and feeling that, yeah, there can be magic. Because, friends, this is the whole gospel. Our gospel rides on the fact that God does magic like no one else can. Not with a prop, not with sleight of hand, but with the power of the Creator of the universe. I want to be able to feel the wow of that Easter magic like those women did. And it's a struggle for me. I bet it's a struggle for you too, because we're so much a part of the world outside. We're so confined, like grave claws, with the laws that surround us, because we've been hurt before and we know we're going to be hurt again. I think if we can covenant to intentionally do a couple of things each day, especially when we think, the other shoe's going to drop, maybe we can start feeling that wow. I think the first thing we need to do is to be able to believe that the old laws truly do not apply anymore. Not at all. You see, when the women went back to the disciples, the disciples dismissed what the women said as if it were idle gossip. Oh, the women have been hitting the bottle again. Oh my, we got to keep the wine away from them. They just could not believe it because it did not fit their understanding of natural law. Well, now there's divine law that has made them, the men, look absolutely ridiculous. There's a new law, the law that says that nothing will keep the miraculous away from you. The miraculous has become commonplace. So those coincidences that you've experienced, those times when a scripture or a thought just jumped into your heart, from now on, you understand those times to be nothing more than sparks from the initial Easter fire, with God wanting you to let those sparks catch fire and burn within your heart. The old laws do not apply to you anymore. And secondly, remember and trust what Jesus said. Maybe what we should do when we're feeling, and the stooped shoulders and the stooped spirit hits again, maybe we should remember Jesus' last words to the disciples in Matthew's gospel. I am with you always. I am with you when you stand beside the grave of a loved one. Because I live, you also will live. I am with you always when that relationship that you treasure so much has broken apart. My relationship with you will not break apart. Because I live, you will live also. I am with you always when you leave the doctor's office and you know your life now has taken on a new part of a journey, a different leg of it. I am with you because I live, you also will live. Don't you see? The miraculous has become the commonplace. That does not mean we get what we want. It means that we will get more than what we need. You probably know very well that the theme of our wildly successful Vacation Bible School recently was Hometown Nazareth. The entire church was recreated as the village of Nazareth. Back in the time when Jesus grew up, we had Mary's house, we had a marketplace, we had a well, we had a nosy neighbor, we had a tax collector, we had a synagogue, and I was asked to be the synagogue leader. Don't know why they asked me to do that, but I was. And the most interesting thing was that as groups of kids would come in and we do our crafts in the prayer room, which was converted into a little synagogue, my job was to ask them, tell me about this Jesus character, this son of the carpenter. Who is Jesus? And with each group of kids, there'd be always 2 or 3 that would look at me and say, he's the Son of God. You knew they wanted to add, duh. But they respected the rabbi, I think, you know. He's the Son of God. Period. No explanation. No rationalization. They knew it. Can you believe, really believe, that he is the Son of the magical Father? Can you believe that through him the old laws do not apply any longer? Can you believe that in his words there is life? Can you believe that he is the Son of God in your office, on the street corner, on the playground, in the living room, in the hospital room, in the funeral parlor? Can you believe that through Jesus Christ, the resurrected Jesus Christ, that God will dry every tear, heal every heart, open every grave? Can you?